before a single nunchuck ever spun in Bruce Lee's hands, before Jackie Chan took his first impossible fall off a rooftop, before any of those legendary names carved their way into Hollywood history, there was a small studio in Hong Kong quietly building the foundation that would hold up an entire genre. We are talking about the 1960s, the decade that most martial arts fans skip right past on their way to enter the dragon and blood sport. And that right there is the biggest mistake any fan of this genre can make. Picture this. It is 1966. There is no VHS, there is no Blockbuster, there is no Bruce Lee on a movie poster, and yet in a Hong Kong studio lot packed with hand-painted sets, silk costumes, and stunt performers doing things that no insurance company would ever approve today, a director named King Hu is quietly inventing the rules of martial arts cinema. Every wire pull, every balletic sword duel, every strong and silent hero you have ever loved in this genre traces its DNA straight back to what was happening in those films. Today we are going back to where it all started. These are the top 7 martial arts films of the 1960s that invented the genre, the films made before Bruce Lee changed everything, before Hollywood came knocking, and before CGI made any of it feel effortless. 7 films that most people have never seen, but that every single fan of this genre owes a debt to. And here is the one thing I will promise you before we get into this list. Number 1 on this countdown is a film so influential that a young Jackie Chan appears in it as a background extra. You will not want to miss that reveal. Stay with me.
是过路人。我受了伤，我也可以打赢。上面也是死路一条。
There is a certain kind of movie that does not try to explain itself. It just puts 2 swordsmen on a dusty road, drops a caravan of gold in between them, and lets the blades do the talking. That is exactly what Have Sword, Will Travel does, and it does it with a confidence that most martial arts films would spend an entire decade trying to match. Directed by Chang Che and released on Christmas Day of 1969 by Shaw Brothers Studio, the film stars T. Lung and David Chiang, 2 actors who would go on to define the look and feel of Hong Kong action cinema throughout the entire 1970s. T. Lung plays Xiang Ding, an escort guard hired to protect a shipment of gold across dangerous territory. David Chiang plays Luo Yi, a wandering swordsman who crosses his path. The setup is simple, almost Western in its bones, which is not a coincidence. Chang Che had been absorbing the influence of Sergio Leone and John Ford, and you can feel it in every wide shot of a rider moving through open landscape. What made this film land so hard with audiences was the chemistry between T. Lung and David Chiang. These 2 men moved like they had been fighting together their entire lives, and watching them switch from rivals to reluctant partners is one of the genuine pleasures of late 1960s Hong Kong cinema. The final battle, set against a group of bandits in a fortress, is relentless and does not let up for a single breath. Chang Che was known for bloodier finales than most directors of the era were willing to attempt, and Have Sword, Will Travel is no exception. This film launched one of the most iconic actor partnerships in Hong Kong film history. T. Lung and David Chiang would reunite for more than a dozen films over the next several years, becoming the gold standard for the buddy action formula long before Hollywood figured out that 2 guys with chemistry were better than 1 guy with muscles. Have Sword, Will Travel is still available through streaming platforms that carry the Shaw Brothers catalog, and it holds up in a way that will genuinely surprise anyone expecting a slow, dusty relic.
我还是天下第一剑侠，你每到一处，斩尽杀绝。在下跟金燕子也算是朋友，既然是金燕子的朋友，不能再冒她的名号，做出斩尽杀绝的事情。你管不着。
你杀了那么多人，就为了逼我出头？
我一直想见你一面，是不是仍然喜欢小鹏？经验里的事就是我的事。我惹的事情我会去了解的。
Most sequels coast on the goodwill of the original. Golden Swallow does something far more interesting. It takes the character everyone already loved from Come Drink With Me, puts her right back in the center of the frame, and then builds an entirely different kind of story around her. One that is darker, moodier, and in some ways more brutal than anything the first film attempted. Released in 1968 and directed by Chang Che, Golden Swallow reunites Cheng Pei Pei with her iconic character. But this time she is sharing the screen with Jimmy Wong Yu and Lo Lie, both of whom are competing for her attention in ways that grow increasingly dangerous. The film was shot partly on location in Japan, which gives it a completely different visual texture from the studio-bound look of most Shaw Brothers productions of the period. The outdoor photography is genuinely stunning, with green mountainsides and natural light replacing the painted sets that audiences had come to expect. The story revolves around a mysterious swordsman who has been traveling the countryside, leaving Golden Swallow's signature at the scene of every killing, a move designed to lure her out of hiding because he is obsessed with her. It sounds like the setup for a romance, and in lesser hands, it would have been. Chang Che turns it into something closer to a Greek tragedy, with three characters locked into a collision that none of them can stop. The final act delivers the kind of bloody, operatic finish that Chang Che was becoming known for, and audiences who had never seen a martial arts film show that kind of emotional weight were genuinely shaken by it. Golden Swallow is the bridge film between the elegant wuxia of King Hu and the raw, bloody action cinema that would dominate Hong Kong in the 1970s. Chang Che was finding his voice in this film, and you can feel the genre shifting underneath your feet as you watch it. For anyone who wants to understand how martial arts cinema went from graceful dance to brutal impact, this is the film that shows you exactly where the turn happened. Before there was an Ocean's 11, before there was a Mission Impossible, before Hollywood had fully figured out that a team of specialists assembling for one impossible job was a formula that could not fail, Shaw Brothers was doing exactly that in a 1969 wuxia film that most Western audiences have never heard of. Killers 5 is the forgotten grandfather of every ensemble heist action movie you have ever loved. Directed by Cheng Kang and released in 1969, the film follows a government officer named Yue Zhengbei who is given one mission: rescue the Duke's kidnapped daughter from a bandit lord who has barricaded himself inside an impenetrable fortress on Mount Jinlong. The Duke refuses to send troops. He wants a small, elite team. What follows is a sequence straight out of the Magnificent Seven, as our hero travels from location to location, recruiting the best fighters he can find. There is a climbing specialist, a master archer played by Li Qing, a gambling trickster played by Ku Feng, and a strategist with a sword arm that would make most men reconsider their life choices. What makes Killers 5 genuinely special is Li Qing's performance as the master archer Ma Jinling. This is not a supporting role. She is front and center in the film's most intense sequences, and she more than holds her own against wave after wave of opponents in the final fortress battle. Shaw Brothers had been putting women in action roles since Come Drink With Me, but Li Qing in Killers 5 is something different. She is not there to be rescued. She is there to do the rescuing. The film starts light and almost comedic, which lulls you into a false sense of security before the third act arrives and does not look back. The fortress siege that closes the movie is a masterpiece of escalating tension, with the body count rising and the team being picked apart in ways that feel genuinely costly. Killers 5 never got the international distribution it deserved in its day, which is a shame, because it is one of the most purely entertaining films Shaw Brothers ever produced. Ask a question. Return of the One-Armed Swordsman does not ask anything. It simply kicks the door down, grabs you by the collar, and does not let go for 100 minutes. If the original One-Armed Swordsman was the film that proved martial arts cinema could have genuine emotional weight, then this sequel is the film that proved it could also just absolutely lose its mind in the best possible way. Also directed by Chang Che and starring Jimmy Wang Yu returning as the one-armed warrior Fang Kang, the 1969 sequel picks up with Fang settled into a peaceful life with his wife, his sword put away for good. That lasts about 12 minutes of screen time before a group called the 8 Demon Swordsmen begins kidnapping martial arts masters from every school in the region, demanding a human arm as ransom from each sect. Fang has one arm left. He is not giving it up. What follows is one of the most relentlessly paced action films of the entire decade, with sword fights arriving every few minutes, and the violence reaching levels that 1969 audiences had genuinely never seen before in this genre. One reviewer at the time compared the relationship between this film and its predecessor to the relationship between The Road Warrior and the original Mad Max. That comparison still holds up. Chang Che had been restrained in the first film, letting drama and character carry the weight. In the sequel, he let the action carry everything, and the result is a film that feels like it was made almost by someone who had been told he only had one more chance to make a martial arts movie, and was determined to put every single idea he had ever had into it. Return of the One-Armed Swordsman arrived at a pivotal moment in Hong Kong cinema, just before Bruce Lee would redefine everything. It represents the absolute peak of what the old-school wuxia format could achieve in terms of pure kinetic energy, and watching it today you understand exactly why the audiences of 1969 walked out of theaters completely electrified.
我是个废物。
看看这个有用没有？
是个一只手的残废呀！我今天救你，就是报答师了。我再也不会跟你们见面。你们要再是纠缠不清，别怪我手下无情。 我的刀呢？
Every genre has a before and after. For martial arts cinema, the before and after is this film. The One-Armed Swordsman did not just succeed at the Hong Kong box office in 1967, it became the first Hong Kong film to gross over 1 million Hong Kong dollars, which at the time was a number that nobody in the industry thought was possible. It changed everything about what studios believed audiences wanted from this kind of movie. Director Chong Che and star Jimmy Wong Yu had worked together before, but this was the collaboration that put both of them permanently on the map. Wong Yu plays Fong Kong, the son of a loyal servant who is raised as a student of the Golden Sword School. His classmates resent his skill and his humble origins, and after a confrontation gone wrong, he loses his sword arm and is left for dead. He is rescued by a farm girl named Xiao Man, and in a quiet stretch of the film that most action directors would have cut entirely, he heals, falls in love, and slowly learns to fight again using only his remaining arm and a broken sword modified to work with his new limitations. What Chang Che understood, in a way that separated him from almost every other director working in Hong Kong at that time, was that the audience needed to feel the cost of every fight before they could feel the triumph. By the time Fang Kang faces his enemies in the film's climax, you have spent enough time with him that his victory feels genuinely hard-earned. The choreography, handled by Han Ying-chi, was unlike anything audiences had seen, combining the elegance of classical wuxia with a rawness that felt almost documentary in its impact. The One-Armed Swordsman spawned an entire generation of maimed hero films across Asia, directly influenced the Zatoichi tradition in Japan, and its DNA can be found in everything from Kill Bill to every modern single-limbed action protagonist you have ever rooted for. It is not just a great martial arts film. It is one of the great films of the 1960s, full stop.
您看，这个月份会有客人来，依你看他们是什么路子？摸不清楚，反正来意不善。好，我们把这个店包了，以后有客人来，你要先问过我才能留下。客官，我们这儿没房了，我看您呐，还是快走吧。何必苦苦的跟我们作对？没法子，拿人钱财，与人消灾。
你们几位恐怕未必是他的对手。
你太爱管闲事了，我管的都是正事。老家伙，真有两下子。
Imagine if someone took the tension of a Lyon standoff, the moral clarity of a Kurosawa samurai film, the visual beauty of a classical Chinese painting, and then locked all of it inside a single inn on the edge of the Gobi Desert. That is Dragon Inn. And before you ask how those influences ended up in a 1967 Taiwanese wuxia film, the answer is that director King Hu was not just watching Hong Kong cinema. He was watching everything, absorbing everything, and then filtering it all through a sensibility that was entirely his own. Released in October of 1967, Dragon Inn was the first film King Hu made after leaving Shaw Brothers and moving to Taiwan. The plot is almost deceptively simple. A corrupt eunuch in Ming Dynasty China has had the emperor's minister of defense executed, and now wants the minister's children eliminated before they can grow up and seek revenge. A small group of loyal swordsmen intercept the assassins at a remote border inn, and what follows is a chess match played with blades, poisoned wine, and nerves of steel. The Criterion Collection restoration in recent years has allowed modern audiences to see just how extraordinary the widescreen compositions are, with King Hu using the edges of the frame the way a painter uses negative space, to make the action when it comes feel like the release of a coiled spring. The fight sequences in Dragon Inn are unlike anything else being made in 1967. King Hu edited them with a rhythmic precision that felt closer to music than to conventional movie action, cutting on movement in ways that made the human body seem simultaneously graceful and lethal. His lead actress, Polly Shangquan Lingfeng, was not a trained martial artist, but King Hu worked with her until she could move through a fight scene with the kind of fluidity that made audiences forget to blink. Dragon Inn was a blockbuster across Asia and is today recognized by the Criterion Collection as one of the essential films of world cinema. Every modern wuxia film, from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon to Hero to House of Flying Daggers, owes a direct creative debt to what King Hu built inside that desert inn in 1967. This is the film that turned a genre into an art form.
您来这儿有什么公干？
我在两江总督衙门当差。
这儿是佛门净地，小姐怎么能恃强行凶，随便杀人？
你少管闲事，你勾结匪盗也要连坐。
我出去就是为了找他，几年没见，你还要饭呢？
要饭没出息，比不上你披着架上造。
他不像个有功夫的人啊。
他的功夫已经到了登峰造极的境界，因为他一天到晚喜欢喝酒装疯卖傻，有些无聊的人叫他醉侠。
你们真是活腻了！我们追溯到了，他的功夫已经到了炉火纯青的地步。
国长行律，岂能为了本身的安危而玩忽国法？
小小年纪，何必赶尽杀绝呢？
职务再生，捉拿逃犯。
Here it is, The One, the film that started it all, the film that Hong Kong submitted as its entry for the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film in 1966. The film that is on Stephen J. Schneider's list of 1001 movies you must see before you die. The film that features a 19-year-old ballet dancer named Cheng Pei Pei in one of the most quietly revolutionary performances in the history of action cinema. And yes, if you look very carefully in the background of one of the end scenes, there is a young extra named Jackie Chan, working as a background player before anyone in the world had any idea who he would become. Come Drink With Me was released in April of 1966, directed by King Hu and produced by Run Run Shaw. The premise is stripped down to its most essential elements. Bandits have kidnapped a government official and are holding him hostage in exchange for the release of their imprisoned leader. The government sends its best warrior to negotiate and, if necessary, fight. That warrior is Golden Swallow, a fierce and extraordinarily skilled swordswoman played by Cheng Pei Pei. The bandits, when they learn a warrior is coming, are confident and even amused. That confidence lasts exactly until Golden Swallow walks through the door. King Hu had made a decision that seems obvious in retrospect, but was genuinely radical in 1966. He cast a ballet dancer in the lead role rather than a trained martial artist, reasoning that a dancer's understanding of space, rhythm, and the relationship between music and movement would translate better to screen than raw fighting ability. He was completely right. Cheng Pei Pei moves through every fight scene with an economy and a grace that makes the action feel almost inevitable. The in-fight sequence, where Golden Swallow takes on an entire room of armed men while barely spilling her drink, remains one of the most perfectly choreographed action sequences of the entire decade. Come Drink With Me did not just make Cheng Pei Pei a star, although it absolutely did that. It did not just prove that a woman could carry an action film without a male hero riding in to save her, although it proved that too, nearly 40 years before Hollywood would catch up to the idea. What Come Drink With Me actually did was establish the visual and rhythmic language of wuxia cinema that every filmmaker who came after King Hu would use as their starting point. The wire work, the choreography philosophy, the use of an inn as a social microcosm where heroes and villains are forced into proximity, the strong, silent female warrior who lets her blade do her talking. All of it, every single bit of it, started right here in 1966. Quentin Tarantino has cited this film as a direct influence on Kill Bill. Michelle Yeoh has spoken about watching Cheng Pei Pei as a young woman and understanding for the first time that there was a place for her in action cinema. Ang Lee cast Cheng Pei Pei as the villain in Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon specifically as a tribute to what she built in this film. When you watch Come Drink With Me today, what you are watching is not just a great movie from 1966. You are watching the moment an entire genre found its identity. And there it is. 7 films from a decade that most people walk right past on their way to the Bruce Lee shelf, and every single one of them still hitting harder than most of what gets made today. That is the thing about the 1960s in Hong Kong and Taiwan cinema. These filmmakers were not working with unlimited budgets or digital tools or stunt coordinators with 20 years of experience. They were working with raw creativity, physical courage, and the absolute certainty that the human body, when pushed to its limits and placed in front of a camera by someone who understood light and rhythm, was the most powerful special effect ever invented. Bruce Lee did not appear from nowhere in 1971. He walked through a door that King Hu and Chang Che had built, frame by frame, fight sequence by fight sequence, throughout the entire decade that came before him. The next time you rewatch Enter the Dragon or Drunken Master or Police Story, remember that the language those films are speaking was written in the 1960s in a studio lot in Hong Kong by people whose names most casual fans have never learned. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 7 films have you actually seen? Was there a 1960s martial arts film that you think deserved a spot on this list that I left off? Drop it in the comments and make your case. And if you grew up watching this genre on late-night cable or on VHS tapes you had to rewind before returning, hit that like button because this video was made specifically for you. Subscribe so you do not miss what is coming next. We are going to stay in this era a little longer because there is an entire decade of hidden gems still waiting to be pulled out of the archive. Next time, we are heading into the samurai films of 1960s Japan, a parallel universe of blade cinema that was happening at exactly the same time as Shaw Brothers, and the two traditions were watching each other very closely. You are going to want to be here for that one. Until then, keep watching the classics. The good stuff was always there. You just had to know where to look.